Good morning, everyone, and welcome. We hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. Today's forum is presented by SPED Wilton in partnership with Wilton Public Schools, Darien, SEPAC, and Wilton Youth Council. We are thankful for their partnership. We're so excited today to have pediatric language and literacy specialist, Dr. Lydia Soifer, with us. Dr. Soifer will explore the power of words and how you can influence your children's learning and behavior with the words you choose. Dr. Soifer is a language pathologist with over 45 years of experience in clinical and private practice, as well as university teaching. She is the founder and director of the Soifer Center for Learning and Child Development, the very first multidisciplinary private diagnostic and remedial setting in Westchester County. She also provides educational and advocacy services to families on behalf of their children in coordination with other professionals and schools. Our SPEDNet Wilton board is here today to answer any questions after the presentation. We have Eve Kessler, Executive Director and co-founder of SPEDNet Wilton, and co-presidents Carolina Corrigan, and I am Janine Kelly. Just a few quick ground rules before we get started. Many of you are already familiar with them as you've been watching us for a long time. We will take questions at the end of this presentation. Please type your questions into the Q&A, not into the chat. It's much easier to keep track of the questions and answers in the Q&A. Also, please be mindful that this is an open forum and we're recording it. So you want to be careful not to reveal any private information that you don't want out there in the public forum within your questions. Lastly, any information provided in this presentation by Dr. Soifer or the SPEDNet Wilton board is not intended to be therapeutic or legal advice. The information and discussion are for your general purposes only. And with that being said, I will turn the table over to Dr. Soifer. Welcome.
Good morning. Have I managed to unmute myself and you can hear me?
Yes, you have.
I'm a linguist. I have no technological skills worth a darn. So what I'm going to do today is talk with all of you about the power of language and how language, we're going to focus on how language can be used to be kind, the helpful, not the hurtful, but aware of the fact that there is enormous, enormous power in language. And because most of us are able to use it with facility, there is a tendency to take it for granted. This image of who is this child is an important one. I consult in various schools and present at many, many conferences. I confer with administrators and I meet with so very many parents. And I stress for everyone the need to be able to answer this question. Who is this child standing in front of me? How does she need me to be available to her? Who is he as a learner, as a person by temperament? And how must I consider that in my interactions with him? So all of these components, as you see them, are in perpetual interaction. Everyone has an inherent neurology. We have a particular temperament and personality style. If you had seen me approximately an hour ago, you would not recognize me as this calm, seemingly mature, competent professional because my printer wasn't working and I was having a temper tantrum. And so the dynamic between and among these circles, these components, is crucial. Cognitively, I knew better. Emotionally, don't even ask where I went. And we're not going to talk about the language I was using. But you see how circumstances will vary which circle pulses at any given time. Today we're going to be directing ourselves largely in this talk to the language circle, the emotional circle, and the cognitive circle. Long, as you can see by the date before today's conference, Lao Tzu offered these notions, these very thoughtful words. Kindness in words creates confidence. Kindness in thinking creates profoundness, and kindness in giving creates love. This is true in not only in this tenet, but in many different belief systems, that the world is built on acts of loving kindness. And if that sounds kind of mushy, yeah, It probably is, but it can't ever hurt to be kind or to say a kind word, all right? So let me give you this notion. Language is the essential condition of knowing, the process by which experience becomes knowledge. This is the linguist Michael Halliday offered this many, many years ago, as you can see. And what I train all teachers to believe, what I train all therapists to understand, what I offer to all parents is that language is based on experience. And let me give you a good example of how I learned that. As you will see subsequently, I am the mother of twins. And one of them is, well, they're both very interesting fellows and extraordinarily handsome, and I adore them. And if any of you have daughters, never mind. I want grandchildren. It's that simple. When one of them was very young, I took him to see one of my colleagues. He was 2.5, and my colleague is a developmental pediatrician. I had some questions. I probably knew too much professionally. And at one point I turned to her and I said, oh gosh, Ruth, he is so pig-headed and stubborn. And she looked at me with the wisdom of her 20 years of seniority and the parent of children. And she said to me, Lydia, you hear the tone? Lydia, if you call him pig-headed and stubborn, that's what he'll be. But if you refer to him as determined and persevering, that's what he'll be. And if ever there was a determined and persevering fellow, it is my son, Joshua. He sets a goal and he goes straight ahead to achieve that goal. But you hear the difference between the negativity, bad mommy, of pig-headed and stubborn versus determined and persevering, the language of kindness. Speaking is an action. Think of it that way. It's like hitting somebody on the head or giving them a big, warm hug. All right? And think about this as well. Language is omnipresent and it's enormously powerful. In some instances, the act of saying is the act of doing. In linguistics, that's called a felicity condition. For example, think about it. If you have all the right conditions, there is a person who stands before you and says, I now pronounce you man and wife. All right? Or I sentence you to 2 years of probation. Language is power. All right? So the language that children and parents and teachers use in their classrooms is an enormous, big deal. We really have to think about what we're saying, how we're saying it, and why we are saying it that way. So remember, I told you we were going to look at the language circle, the emotional and the social interaction. The cognitive is inherent in every circumstance. So when a child has a disrupted language system, it is sometimes extremely frustrating, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. The language ability, when you think about it, it's the ability to talk to others about yourself, about the person to whom you are speaking, about events, past, present, future. It's the ability to make things happen, to negotiate, for example, to regulate behavior, for example. Think about all the powerful things that we do with language. So it's crucial to our social interactions. In addition, where it says emotional regulation includes the need to vary emotion. So you have to, it means reining in your behaviors, but not only, we have a huge range of emotions and the words to summon them and identify them. So when we can talk about what is expected and appropriate in any situation. I'm thinking of a circumstance in which I saw a little boy, generic name, Stephen, take a bag of leaves that his little classmate had collected. And Joseph, whose bag was taken by Stephen, became furious. And he went to hit his classmate. And the teacher went to grab his arm and said, use your words. Well, which word should he use? I stepped in and I said, Joseph, tell Stephen, I'm angry, which beats the devil out of bopping somebody on the head and gets you in trouble. So use your words doesn't work. And as a parent, to be able to say, whoa, 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 I see you are very angry. Right? It helps to identify the behavior, the feeling, and to give you something concrete, those words to say in a situation. So it varies the emotion by controlling the emotion. It enables you to calm down a little bit. In addition, you have to be aware of the fact that you have a particular emotion before you can begin to control it. So language helps you identify the feeling that you're having. And I've watched it happen to a lot of kids. Like Joseph really didn't hit Stephen because he was then able to say, I'm angry. Now, it doesn't mean he didn't want to hit Stephen, but he was able, I had identified the emotion for him. And then, children learn a lot about expressing and regulating emotions by watching how other people behave, parents. All right. So that's something. This is where teachers, as well as parents, because it's all day long, either the kids are in school or they're with you, model the language of feelings and behavior, and that are kind of, oh, I'm so frustrated, as opposed to, Grr! Whoa. And if somebody does that, then you identify that as frustrated or angry. So the actions and the words work together. Let me give you a good example of how that worked. Many years ago, I worked with a little boy, I beg your pardon, who is now 17. At that time, he was quite a bit shorter than I was. And at this time, he's terrorizingly taller than I am, because he was 4 and now he's 17. And it's just scary to watch them grow like weeds. But in any event, when he was 4, he often had trouble expressing himself and recognizing what was going on in a situation. And the school complained to the parents, and the parents asked me to come to school and observe him because he had begun to push some of the children without provocation. So I watched him at school one day. He knew me. I was being an assistant in the playground. He was riding around on his bike, and there were these 2 little girls, also 4, very, very dramatic, I would say. And for no apparent reason, he got off his bike, walked over, and not very firmly pushed them, just pushed them. They started to carry on as if they had been attacked by a pack of wolves. Ah, they were carrying on. And he was standing there like this, watching these little drama queens carry on. And it came to be that he was trying to learn to recognize different behaviors. And because they were so dramatic, he chose them. So I went to school with him a couple of times, and then I spoke with his SEPAC. And when the kids were in circle, he would sit with one or the other of us, and we would teach him how to watch when somebody was going to talk. You leaned forward, how someone was tired, how someone was bored, because those movements, those emotional states are quick and disappear. And he couldn't figure them out quickly enough. Right? Think drama queens. He didn't pick 2 calm little boys sitting in building. He picked 2 girls who carry on in Academy Award-winning performances. All right. Language is used to label our emotions. All right. It provides a tool by which kids can examine their feelings in a cooler medium, all right, and gain control over their feelings. We want to help them develop a broader and broader vocabulary of emotional words. And I think that that makes a very, very big difference when they have a lot of words that they can use. So for example, I was in a classroom and we had the kids busily playing around, and one of the moms came to school early to pick up her child. I don't know if he had a doctor's appointment or they were going to visit grandma. I don't remember anymore. And oh, did he start to cry? My goodness gracious, did he start to cry? And one of the other boys walked over and put his arm around him and was patting him the way you would pat a baby. And what I did on purpose was to walk over and say, oh, Simon, you're sad. You don't want to leave class early. Isaac, you're being very kind. And do you hear what I'm doing with my voice? I'm just putting a little bit more emphasis on that word. Isaac, you're being so very kind, helping Simon feel better. You know, it's very, very different than saying, oh, it's okay, honey, don't cry. You'll be back in school tomorrow. That's not comforting. The same way as, oh, you feel sad. You don't want to leave right now. Okay, you're being kind. The words that you choose make a world of difference. So take a look at this. This is called the semantic continuum. So you start with, at the far end, overjoyed. I can't get happier than this. There's just no way. Nothing's making me happier. I just won $457 million and my sons are getting married, and who could ask for anything more? And I was just informed that I'm in perfect health. I'm overjoyed, right? At the other extreme is I'm enraged. Right? Now, this morning when my computer was disobeying, I wasn't enraged, I was furious. Right? But think about the range. Look at those words. Those are words that you want to share with kids so that they can use them appropriately and connect them to circumstances, because language is based on experience and the children will remember what happened to them. What I'm suggesting is, do you remember how thrilled grandma was when we showed up at her door on Sunday with dinner? She didn't know we were coming, all right? She was delighted. Do you remember how upset, how angry Uncle George was when I broke his favorite cup? But he loves me, so he got over it and he was okay. The vocabulary of emotions is much, much broader than this, but you'll be okay is not quite enough. That's the middle ground. Now, you have to think about, beyond the words that we choose, the message that we deliver. So let me talk to you about two experiences that I had when I was unintentionally hurt very badly by a teacher. I was in the 5th grade, just a few years ago. I was in the 5th grade, and I have a mature bearing. That's what you're saying. And we were trying to think of a fundraising activity that we could do for our school. And I, good girl that I was, raised my hand, and my teacher looked at me and said, yes, Lydia. And I said, oh, how about if we create or make a bazaar? And the teacher looked down at me and he said, you would think of that, Lydia, a bazaar. And I never spoke in his class again, ever. I felt about that big, all right? Now, he thought it was a compliment. He was being sarcastic. Never be sarcastic with little kids, all right? He was playing with words, but I was 10, all right? And I just felt shrunken. And then, of course, is the opposite. I was made to feel absolutely gigantic. By a 2-year-old, I was consulting in a yeshiva so that the children there call teachers Mora, which is why you'll hear this quote. And I was playing with a couple of little girls, and I did something that was silly. It was goofy, which is not the way most teachers act. And one of the little girls looked up at me and she smiled and she said, "Mora, Liddy, you silly." And I felt like $1,000,000. All right. Now, bizarre, silly, with the joy of you make me feel good. I felt gigantic. Now, the message we deliver in the words we choose, the context. All righty. You're a banana. You see the picture of the banana. I was in a class of, I don't remember, 2 or 3-year-olds. And one of the boys looked up at me. They were having snack. And he said, "You're a banana." All right. So I looked at him and I said, "You're a pineapple." And he looked at me. And then I went around and I said to each of the children, "You're an apple. You're a plum. Woo, you're an apricot. You're grapes." And it was just so funny. I said, "Come on, all of you fruits, let's stand up." And we gave each other we all wrapped our arms around each other and announced, "We're a fruit salad." All right. Which then became, it was a sweet, sweet moment. In the next year, when I returned to that school, the children who had been there and knew the routine would see me in the hall and go, "Hi, banana." And I would say, "Hi, pineapple. Hi, strawberry." But the other kids were looking at us like we were out of our minds and thought the children were being fresh, but they weren't. So the context in which you use the words makes a difference. They didn't know what was going on and they thought, "Are those kids nuts talking to a teacher that way?" All right. Now, there's also, again, beyond the words we choose, the message, the words, the context, now the intent. All right. When you think about, do you want to have control as an adult over a situation? I saw a parent say to a bunch of kids, "Hello, anybody ready to listen to me?" The answer to that is no. Okay. As opposed to, "Hey, everybody, look up here for a sec. Look, I have something good to tell you. Come on, give me a smile. Give me a smile." I have a problem, which is my 92-year-old mother is repeatedly calling me. May I ask you to mute this for a minute? I have to know what's going on. Thank you very much. I apologize. My 92-year-old mother insists upon living alone at an absurd distance from here and will forever be furious that I took control of her car. And so I have to go back to the previous slide because all right. So, there's a way of doing this in which you exercise control and you don't do it in a potent way. It becomes, what is your intent, to control or to instruct? Now, think of it this way. The expression of control is, "What's wrong with you? What were you thinking?" Think of the impact of that language. Instructionally, for parents and for teachers, you say, "That's not like you. Tell me what's going on." All right. You focus on the positive, helping the child consider who he or she would like to be. All right. Now, there's also control. All right. I've heard, I watch a lot of classes and I have friends with young grandchildren. And I watch this all the time. So you see a reading group deteriorate into chaos, and the teacher says, you know, get back to work or you'll be staying in at lunch. Or a play date suddenly turns into a holy mess. If you guys don't cut it out, you're not going to have another play date. As opposed to instructionally, the teacher saying, you know, when you're really loud like that, it interferes with the other kids' learning, and it's very frustrating. And saying to the children, hey, guys, when you make such a big, an enormous amount of noise, it's harder for me to do my work. And then I think, oh, gee, maybe we're not going to have as much fun the next time. Let's think of something we can do to make this more fun. So you want to feel as if you are saying something that helps them think about a better way to behave, better way to think. Now, what I want to do here is these are words that represent different concepts of kindness. This is the work of a man named Brian Williams, who wrote that kindness is one of the simplest and most basic fundamentals of life. It's very easily forgotten. We become inundated by the demands that can fill our days. And unfortunately, these days, there's an extremely large amount of negativity to which we are constantly exposed. And sometimes it just takes a tiny, 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 simple act for us to realize how easily it is to change someone's life. All right. Example, my mother. My mother loves cats. Her cats died. And she was lonely. So we made a great effort to find her another cat. And the cat took to her. Here's the act of kindness. Do you honest to goodness think that this cat prefers her chicken and turkey and beef? She likes the gravy, but she prefers it in cheese sauce. I love my mother dearly, but I have to go from store to store to find the cat's food in cheese. All right. It's an act of kindness. And so saying you are being kind, you are showing kindness, that's a lovely thing to do. What a sweet way to be. It makes you and other people feel good. The other night, I parked my car in the city, and the garage attendant I wasn't sure it was he. I thought he was a man waiting for his car, stopped dead in the pathway, in the route into the garage. So, and there was a car behind me. So I pulled up a little bit, and he went like this to me. And I thought, oh, okay, he's having a bad day. So I rolled down the window. Oh gosh, that's old. I opened the window with the little button that's on the door in my computerized vehicle. And I said, I just wanted to make some room for the guy behind me. And he looked at me and he said, which was the equivalent of stay put. And I thought, all right, I am going to kill this guy with kindness until he smiles. And I did not stop until he thought, I'm going to smile at this woman because she's crazy in order to get the devil out of here. But I ultimately got him to smile and say, okay. Was it a warm smile? But I said, oh, I was just trying to be helpful to you. You know, I wanted to make sure you had enough room and get all the cars in here and you get to pay, anything. Because what I wanted to say to him is, hey, sourpuss, get over it. But that wasn't going to help him or help me. So let's talk a little bit about these concepts. Kindness is the quality of being friendly and generous and considerate. You'll feel the thread of warmth and decency that runs through these. Empathy, the ability to understand and share feelings for somebody else. Caring, displaying kindness or concern for someone. Sharing, which is a very big deal with little kids, teaching them to share. How many times have you seen mine? All right, a lot. We know that very quickly, very, very quickly. Now, on the other side, you've got sympathy, feelings of pity, sorrow for someone's misfortune. It's sort of everybody feels that sometimes. Compassion. What is compassion? It's concern and caring for the suffering of other people. And there are some people who are more filled with these emotions and some who are less filled with them. Concern, to have interest or engagement with, and then courage. To be brave enough to do something that scares you, all right? The strength to go forward in pain or grief. On the wall right up here, it's something that I put in my boys' room when they went off to college. And it says, no matter how you feel, get up, dress up, and show up. Do the right thing. It's an act of kindness. All right. Now here are some wonderful, wonderful synonyms for you. So you can take a look at this, because in this age of increased tolerance, I laugh all the time. My friend's son was 5 when he said this, and a girl in his class asked him to marry her. Why? We were hysterical laughing. She proposed to him. And then, lo and behold, he is now, I think, 11. A little boy in the class proposed to him as well. He's a very popular boy. To which he said, it was okay, he told his mommy. It was okay, because now boys can marry boys and girls can marry boys. But he's not ready to get married yet, so it's okay. That's an act of tolerance, of acceptance, all right? And I heard from my from my friend yesterday, who told me that her 11-year-old asked her a very interesting question. A bunny rabbit crossed the road in front of their car. And so my friend slowed up and she said, woo, she's a lucky rabbit. To which her 11-year-old son said, Mommy, how do you know it's a she? Maybe it's a they. All right, so we're looking for tolerance and empathy and understanding. And then I taught this to my children, who are quite fraternal, a long time ago. Different isn't better or worse. It's just different. And you have to analyze the difference and if that works for you. Okay. So what are some acts of kindness? Teaching children how to care. Kindness, as you can imagine, is fairly complex. And there's a good deal of research on all of this, that children are happier, have a better sense of well-being. There's less bullying, which has become increasingly pronounced in this day and age. And they enrich their friendships. They're deeper when we as adults, as parents, and as teachers, teach them to be givers of kindness, to do something nice, thoughtful, meaningful for someone else. And the research that I studied also showed that children are born to be kind. Children aren't born mean, all right? But by a 4th grade or so, what that makes them, 8 or 9, they are socialized to start thinking more about themselves than others. And that the research out of the University of British Columbia, for example, said that the name of the research is Kindness Counts, for those of you who are interested, showed that the kids, by the time they were preteens, who had been taught strategies to increase their kindness, were much, much calmer and happier children. The kids were asked to deliberately do things, 2 or 3 acts of kindness every week, and to keep track of what they had done to make things better. So what happened was when the kids did kind things for others, they felt better about themselves. And I will tell you that we did that with the boys when they were younger. On Christmas Day, we used to go to the local nursing home, and they were the bartenders serving soda and coffee and tea. And we served meals and sat and talked with elderly people. That was our family kindness project. The boys used to do this routine where they collected and delivered clothes late at night. So part of what you want to do is, and it doesn't have to be only in school, but you can do that at home, in your church, in your synagogue, in your community, and identify it as an act of kindness. You just sort of take the time to share with the kids. You know, I had a wonderful experience today. Somebody was just very kind, offered to carry my packages. It was delightful. Make sure that you identify something that was lovely. The more you do it, the more natural it becomes. And it takes practice. You remember that old line? How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. And though I tried to make you believe that I'm a lot younger than I am, here was what happened recently when I was teaching a bunch of teachers who were about in their 20s. And I made that remark, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? And there was no response. I expected somebody to say, practice, practice, practice. No, instead, after a delay, while I was standing there sweating, somebody said, by Uber? That's how you know you've gotten old, right? When somebody thinks the way to get to Carnegie Hall is by Uber. So, and the other thing is you model the behavior that you want. I offered help to an older woman and she startled. She thought that I was going to harm her. No, not at all. And the kids, my kids were able to say to me, that was sad, Mom. She thought you were going to hurt her. All right. I always watch surprise reactions. My kids were taught to open doors, to carry packages, to give up their seats. Practice, practice, practice. And it doesn't make you weak. It makes you kind. Right. So here's an assortment of positive things that you can say to children. I'm not going to read them to you. Read them yourself. Hold on to these. Take them and use them. Words can become quite meaningless when they are not followed by actions. And as I've said to you, words can have a great deal of power. You can choose to say more positive things to your kids, not to take it for granted that they're going to do what is expected without acknowledgement. We tend to focus on what they're not doing that's acceptable, all right? Coming up with a few encouraging or positive phrases can be part of the shift that you make, and you really want the kids to imitate and become aware of. I believe in modeling behavior. I teach parents and teachers all the time to think out loud as if you were talking to yourself, which we all do. To say like, you know, I deliberately told you that I thought you were amazing, not because I'm amazed by you, but because you do amazing things for other people. So identify why you're saying what you're saying. Think about what you're doing. Think about it. I'll respect your decision, but your choices are going to make a difference. We had an issue, as you can imagine now, with masks over the holidays, with vaccinations and boosters. So you want to make sure that you model what you want to say, that you think about what you want to say and model that for the kids. I implore you, both parents and teachers, to bag, throw away, get rid of, use your words. I got a lot of words. Which one should I use? Model them. Hey, don't use your words. No, think of the example I was given before. Use your words. And then here are some examples of the kinds of things that, acts of kindness that we would like to see our children being engaged in doing. sharing toys with classmates and with friends, being helpful in class, being helpful in the kitchen. And some of the things that you can say is, you know what, not only do I enjoy your company when you help me make dinner, it just makes it easier for me. Thank you so much. These are examples demonstrating concern or comforting another kiddo who is sad. Oh boy, Mikey looks upset. I'm gonna go talk to him. Or last night, when some of the children in the neighborhood were selling Hanukkah candles, I stopped and smiled at one of the kids and said, you know what, good for you. It's chilly out here, but you're doing something really kind and thoughtful. Those are the kinds of things that I want you to think about. That's a rotten thing you're doing. No, whoa, that was kind of mean. Let's think of another way of showing John that you don't like what he's doing, so that you're always thinking, teaching, and being in the moment. Oh, by the way, moms, by the way, dads, by the way, parents, all right, if you do this half the time, you're better than everybody else on your block. I, of course, am perfect. I did this all the time. And if you doubt me for any second whatsoever, I will give you my son's emails, and you can say to them, is there anyone in the world, anyone at all, that is perfect? And they will simultaneously say, of course, our mother, just letting you know, all right? So, you know, if you see somebody who's sitting by himself, find out, ask that kiddo to play, making new friends, complimenting, being polite. Gosh, it's amazing to me. You know what happened to you're welcome? What happened to you're welcome? Gone with the wind. No problem. It wasn't intended to be a problem. It was an act of graciousness. Let me help you with that. And sometimes it's just smiling at someone. I do that all the time. My kids now think I'm officially nuts for smiling at people in the car next to me, but it's kind of a tough world. And so the more that you can do, the nicer it is to make the world a better place. Now, take a look at that. All right. I wanted you to have a vocabulary list. All right. I gave you all those other phrases. So there are 2 slides that are really, 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 really valuable. They're all terrific, but these are really valuable. The other one with the phrases that you can use, pick a few. All right. And remember that if you use these phrases as well, make sure, because language is enormously complex and sometimes frighteningly subtle, all right? Because I can look at Eve and say, great job, all right? Or I can look at Eve and say, great job, all right? So remember that you want to use your voice. And these are, because you don't want to say the same thing over and over and over again. But you have a repertoire. I put these in here for you to use. They were collated by, as you can see, teacher resources. All right. Remember, unkind words can pollute the atmosphere. Remember what my 5th grade teacher did to me. The media is filled now with unkind words. Children are constantly exposed to them. And I believe genuinely that they need us to be positive verbal models. Because part of what makes us human is the language that we use. I love this one. This one is a really, really, really sweet story. I was with 2 little boys, one who had a tiger and one who had a lion. And what were they doing? They were roaring at each other. They were biting each other. They were attacking each other. And I thought, there's got to be another way. There's got to be another way. All right. I've got to teach these kids another side to this. Oh God, the roaring was unbelievable. So I walked over and I said, "Oh, lion, are you hungry? Is that why you're growling?" And in immediacy, the children say, "Crazy adult, crazy, strange adult." But the adult doesn't make eye contact with the children. "Tiger, Tiger, did you take some of Lion's food? Come with me, come with me." And I beckoned them, and then much to my amusement, the two little boys holding these animals who were growling at each other came, followed me into the kitchen corner, and I proceeded to make lunch for the tiger and the lion. All right. I made them a very, very unhealthy lunch of pizza and broccoli and, for whatever. And we fed them. It was adorable. They stopped growling. They were being thoughtful. I was being kind to them. So we went from that puss, I'm mad at you, to that puss. Oh, let's eat more of that deliciousness. Now let me show you what this became. All right. Some of you may remember this. We're going on a bear hunt. We're going to catch a big one. I'm not scared. All right. This is a classic nursery school rhyme that the kids do, and they dance around. Uh-oh, grass, long wavy grass. We can't go over it. And there are all of these motions. All right. So I joined the group. And I'm dancing around with the kids. And then, all right, there was the bear. What's that? One shiny wet nose, two biggie fur ears, two googly eyes. It's a bear. And unwittingly, I put on a frightened face that was too scary. And those two little boys, the one with the tiger and the lion, ran over to me, and one said to me, "Don't be afraid, Miss Liddy. It's only pretend." And the other one took my hand and said, "We'll take care of you." So I had taught them about being kind to the tiger and the lion by nurturing and feeding them. And then I swear to you that this is the absolute truth. When I overreacted and they thought I was really scared, look what they did. "Don't be afraid. It's," as he said, "it's pretend. All right. We'll take care of you." So it works. So here's some valuable advice that I offer you as an experienced teacher and a parent. All right. Carpe diem, or as the youth of America says, YOLO, seize the day. You only live once. We have no idea. Who knows where the time goes? Joni Mitchell was right. It passes so quickly. And truly, with your kids, you're the model, all right? If you're very, very lucky, you get to be old a lot longer than you were young. The time passes so very quickly. So in the long run, it'll be fine. And I tell you, as the parent of grown children, I tell you as the teacher now of teachers, they're going to remember what you do more than what you say. But what you say and how you say it impacts them enormously. So I offer you the following. Don't blink. It happens so very fast. Start using the language of kindness with them today and help grow their hearts and spirits. Because the next thing you know, you're standing and holding a wine glass with your babies. All right. I hope that was helpful to all of you. I'll be happy to take any questions you might have.
That was wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Soifer. Such powerful words and such important reminders, right? Especially as life seems to get quicker and quicker every day. It's important to pause and remember how you're saying things, right?
It sure is. It sure is.
So it's 10:55. I know you're on limited time. I just want to make sure everybody knows that if they have questions, they can type them into the Q&A. So the first question is, will the PowerPoint be shared? Dr. Soifer, that's up to you. I don't know if we talked to you about that previously, but do you have any objection to us sharing the PowerPoint?
I think I would like to talk with you a little bit about that.
Okay. So the video itself will be shared.
Yes.
So that everybody knows you can go and watch again at your leisure, but you will have that to be shared. And so far, we don't have any questions, but just as people maybe are typing them in.
Is there anything in the chat that we need to
nothing in the chat. Let's see.
I'm saying, oh, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay. That's
no
questions
so yet. Let's see.
Thank you. That was very kind of you. I'm glad you found it helpful.
Oh, okay. So there is another question. The word choice recommendations would be helpful. So maybe we could prepare a document, Dr. Soifer, and share that.
Absolutely. I'll put that in a separate piece, and I'll send it off to you, the phrases and the words. My pleasure.
Great. Thank you. And we'll just give people maybe another minute or two. Okay, so here's a question.
Sure.
Does this presentation and advice work with young adult children?
I believe that it works with everyone. Years ago, I remember a phrase, kill them with kindness. And I deliberately gave you that example of the very rude parking lot attendant, because that was a grown man who was acting in a very inappropriate and unpleasant way. And I thought, if I buck him, if I fight with him, if I say, hey, what's going on? What kind of attitude is that to a customer? Right? What am I going to get? But instead, I smiled and said, and I honestly, it was killing him with kindness. And so he sort of gave me a grim little smile. And when we came back hours later and I offered my ticket, I held it and he went to reach for it. And I said, come on, admit it. You missed me. I made you smile before. All right. And he kind of gave me a smile and laughed. Now, I bet he went home to his family and said, you would not believe the wacko woman that came into the garage tonight. All right. But it doesn't matter. So the answer to the question is yes. It's the words you choose to use and the message that you choose to communicate. Mm-hmm. And if one of your young adult children says something that's obnoxious, instead of saying that's mean, what you want to say is, whoa, that one made me feel unusual. I have to think about that. As opposed to, that was rotten. Why do you say things like that? Whoa, okay, well, it sounds to me like you're angry. So let me think about what's going on. Identify the behavior. So the answer, long-winded as I'm prone to be, is yes.
And that kind of flows into the next question, Dr. Soifer. Can you go over again, not saying use your words, especially with a teenager?
Use your words. I give this example very frequently because it typically will make people crack up. So I'm in classes and I'll see a child do something and the teacher will say, do something that's perhaps aggressive or forward. And the teacher says, use your words. Do you realize what a burden that is on a child? Which words would you like me to use, lady? Cantaloupe? How about sneaker? You want me to use sneaker when I hit him? That doesn't help. So if you have a teenager who storms off into his room and you say, come on, could you use your words? Then he's going to slam his bedroom door. All right. Instead, I knock gently on the door and say, pretty angry, huh? Okay, you're angry. I got it. We'll talk later. Yes, you are modeling behavior. All right, you are modeling behavior. And be fully prepared that in teenagers, preteens and the like, there is this condition, it's called the eye roll, where that is designed to communicate your worthlessness as a human being because the teenager is so profound, so well developed, all right? And I'll give you 2 examples. When the boys were 15, one of them and I were having, shall we say, a disagreement. And he said to me, as he stood to walk out of the room, this conversation is over, Mom. We've had this talk enough times. We're done. And as I felt my blood pressure soar to threaten to have stroke level, I managed to take a deep breath and I said to him, we don't talk to each other that way in this family. I can hear that you're angry and don't want to pursue this conversation now, but I don't talk to you like that. So it would be wonderful if you could say to me, Ma, could we talk about this later? Because that's hurtful. When in fact, I wanted to say to him, are you out of your bloody mind talking to me that way? No, you can use, well, I hear you're angry, so this isn't a good time to talk about it. I got the message. I labeled the behavior. That doesn't mean I didn't want to bop him for being so fresh, but it was better to do it that way. So yes, you can under any, and the trick is capturing your emotion. That's the trick.
So Dr. Soifer, I know it's 11:01. Do you have time? There are 2 more questions. I don't know if you have time for those. Okay. So one of them is, how do you address kids after responding with kindness repeatedly, but a positive change doesn't occur? How do you respond with kindness yet firmness?
You know what? It depends. I don't know if that's a parent or a teacher, but who's asking that question. If it's a teacher and the child is not yours, no kid in class is, that's something to discuss with the school psychologist or the guidance counselor, or to chat with the parents. Because and what you don't want to do is say, I'm seeing these very dreadful behaviors, but instead what you want to say, something's going on because he or she is angry and upset a lot of the time. You don't know what goes on when he's not in your class. If it's your own child, then depending upon the age of the child, my representation would be that we sit together and say, I see something going on and I believe that it has to change and I'm going to help it change. We have to, and because you have to find out what the source of that persistent negative behavior is. Seems to me like something's going on that's bothering you, because I keep hearing and seeing, I keep hearing these words and seeing this behavior, even though we've talked about it a lot of times, as opposed to enough already. I've told you 7 times and you keep doing it. All that does is say, yes, it works. It gets under her skin. It ticks her off. It makes him feel frustrated and upset. It gives me power. So that's something to think about as well.
And then finally, do you have any book recommendations?
Book recommendations. I will take a look at some that I have in the library, and I will add a baby bibliography to the list of words and phrases that I send off to the folks at SPEDnet. How's that?
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Right.
Thank you so much, Dr. Soifer. It was
You're
really,
welcome.
truly great.
Have a wonderful day.
You too. Happy holidays.
Bye.
Thanks so much.